Welcome to another video on the Curved Road Only challenge, where we build a profitable, traffic efficient and good looking city using only curved roads. Today, we'll be building the basic road foundation for future districts. Unlike this neat looking drawing that follows a strict grid, where everything aligns perfectly, we will apply the road hierarchy principles to a city which has a layout composed of only curved roads. I'll explain my thought process as I build, and at the end of the video, we'll see how everything turned out. We will not only be thinking about the basic shape that these future districts will take, but also concern ourselves with how people will travel in and out of these new zones, and how they will go to other places in the city, like workplaces, leisure and commercial zones. This thought process involves putting transportation and walkability first and setting rules for road hierarchy, which can lead to an optimal traffic flow. More on that later. Before that, we start by defining the basic shape of the new district that will be on the other side of the river to the south. This district will have a circular shape, like the residential district above. The river will separate both districts in a way that's perfectly aligned with the roads, so I have to do some terraforming and pretend I'm God. We cover up the river temporarily to allow ourselves to build the coastal roads more freely, and flood the entire city in the process. We then expand the highway. We won't be building here for the time being, but by extending the highway before building anything else here, we can then build other roads and arterials from one side of the river to the other, without having to delete them later to make room for the highway. We can also adjust the shoreline to outline it and match its shape, which is nice. As a reminder, although this is a curved road only challenge, I allow myself to build straight roads for reference points and guidelines, as long as I delete them later and the final road layout of the city is composed of only curved roads. We will have a lot of temporary straight roads for the time being. The highway will not be right next to the river. I want a small gap between the water and the highway, which we can use for some parks, shops and piers. So I proceed to build the guidelines for a road that's parallel to the highway. We also extend the coastal road on the other side of the river as well for symmetry, which will help define the shape for the new district. We might delete this segment later if it doesn't look good, or if we can find any purpose for it. With the basic shape defined, we can then dig out the river again. I use the level terrain tool to outline the guiding roads, or in this case, the coastal roads, and I use the soften and slope terrain tools in some areas where it's needed. At this point, I was really excited to see how this landscaping work was going to turn out. The eastern part of the river, to the left, has no guiding roads, so I just have to eyeball it to make it as good looking as I can. Although I love using dirt roads as much as I can, because these are thinner than the other road types, it's a good idea to upgrade them before unpausing the simulation and letting the water fill the canal. We'll also be building quays here, so it's better to have the entire coastal outline prepared for that. Building next to water is always tricky. As you can see, I already have some trouble upgrading some road segments. With the river complete, we can then start working on the new district. I'm thinking this will be a low density residential district, like the one on the north side. Important points to take into consideration for this are: number 1. Road accesses. How will people get in and out of this area? Where do they have to go through to get to the highway? Number 2. Public transport. What transportation services will be here for people to use? And do we need to reserve spaces for railroads or tram tracks? Number 3. Walkability. Is it easy for people to go to their favorite places by walking? There's a river separating both districts. Should we build a pedestrian bridge for people to be able to cross a river? Starting with point number 1, road accesses. We build an avenue that bridges from one side of the river to the other. This will be the main arterial for this district. In other words, the main road that connects this new district and the highway. It's important that this avenue has as few intersections as possible for an optimal traffic flow. If we can avoid zoning directly in this avenue, even better. I had a hard time making this bridge. If we ever want to build a ferry system, it needs to be high enough for boats to pass under it. I also adjust the slope between the land road and the bridge, making it as smooth as possible. The avenue is then extended, wrapping around the entire district. In the future, it can also be extended to the other side of the river from the right side as well, if we ever want to connect to the other shore or if we feel like we need another highway access, as the highway is right across the river. We build another circular avenue inside the district. This will be a collector road, which has the purpose of connecting the local roads, aka the neighborhoods where houses are built, to the arterial road, so that houses are not built right on top of a high traffic road. Nobody would want that. In order to connect the collector road to the arterial road, we break the quote-unquote grid of the layout and make a collector road turn at a different angle, making it intersect the arterial road. I built several guidelines to make sure this new curve is a perfect quarter circle. I think the hard work paid out in the end. I wrap this area by building some parallel circular roads, which will serve as guidelines for the shape of a potential zoning block. Before continuing the road system, we build quays on the shoreline, and the area becomes much prettier already. Addressing point number 2. Which public transport options will be serving this district? The most impactful one, and the one we need to prepare for the most at this stage, is train. There's a regional railroad right across the river on the left side, so I'm thinking we can bring it to this district, build a passenger train station here, having the rail cross the entire district and then extend it beyond, crossing the river again to the right side to provide global access to future areas of the city. By reserving the location of the train rails now and not later, we avoid having to bulldoze developed parts of the city to make room for it later, or have the rail go around the city and follow a not so optimal path. Planning is key, so it's important to think ahead as much as possible. We won't be implementing the train system now, so for the time being we'll be using dirt roads as a placeholder for the rail. I've done this with the intent of not having additional maintenance costs for an unused rail, but after all the work that I've had making an elevated quote-unquote railroad with perfect slopes, only to have to do it all over again in the future, I wish I had built the actual rail instead. You'll see what I mean. I don't think you can upgrade the dirt roads directly into a rail, unfortunately. I brought the rail to the ground level at a point in the residential district so that we can have a station there. Yes, we can also build an elevated station, which I am considering. Then we brought the rail to the other side of the river, so it can connect with the regional rail system, which you can see on the left side next to that abandoned factory. Again, we built a lot of guidelines so we could make a perfect quarter of a circle, and I had to cover up part of the river again. Because there is already a bridge here, the rail needs to be elevated even higher. The bridge was particularly difficult to build without mods, and it's times like these where I wish I used the Move It mod. I have nothing against it, but I don't know, I prefer to build stuff using just the normal tools the game has to offer. Share this video if you like to suffer like me, or just a console player. After I was happy with the bridge and the slopes, we could then continue shaping the rail. I'm thinking this area will also be good for industrial, as there's easy access to rail to import and export cargo. To connect to the regional rail system, we needed to buy that extra tile at the edge. In case you haven't noticed, I'm using a mod that allows you to buy all 25 tiles in the map. After finishing the placeholder for the rail, we can then start building the basic shape of the district. I'm not investing a lot of time here for the time being. As an industrial area with rail access, it will need dedicated planning because of all the traffic it will have. We will need to think of an arterial and collector road hierarchy logic, just like how we did with the residential layout earlier. So for now, I just build a neat curved layout to see how much space I will have to work with. Finally, we can complete the system and connect the arterial road to the highway. I built what I believe to be an interesting shape for the road. After all, it has to be curved. As I mentioned, I won't zone directly in these high traffic roads, at least not in very high quantities. So because there will be no big developments in this area, it's fine if the road ends up taking a reasonable amount of space. Because it's so close to the highway, this road will be a good place to connect services that need easy traffic access, like trash management buildings or warehouses. Next to the river, we can perhaps build a cool commercial district with leisure specialization. You'll be able to see the final shape of the road when I delete these guidelines. Besides connecting to the newest residential district on the right side across the river, this road system will also connect to the industrial district below, so we need to split the arterial in two. We connect it to the edge of the road system, passing under the rail bridge for the time being. We delete all the guidelines to reveal the final road shape and we upgrade it to an avenue. At the moment, there's only one road crossing the river to access the residential district, so we can build an additional connection straight from the industrial district. This new arterial connecting the industrial and the residential will allow for easy transportation of goods between factories and shops, and will also provide an additional route for workers to travel between their homes and their workplace. This way, local traffic won't have to use the arterial above, which is more adequate for highway traffic. Finally, we do something that I've been mentioning since episode number 1, which is building better highway accesses. Now, to be fair, our traffic is still almost impeccable, and you can see there's no congestion on the highway intersection. But I confess, those cheap dirt road segments were starting to become an eyesore. So, since we're building roads, it's also a good time to work and upgrade all the intersections we have in the city, which, with the one we've built today, are 4 of them. Now, you will notice that the intersections I'm building here are not that sophisticated. The reality is that we don't need anything more complex at this point, and I believe this will be more than enough to handle the amount of traffic we have for now. If we feel like there are connections which become choke points, we can always improve them later, but I don't think that will happen very often. Famous last words. One of the main reasons I'm confident about this is that, as you will notice, all the intersections I'm building, with the exception of the last one, are 3-way intersections, because this map only has one main regional highway access, and because I'll only be using curved roads, I'm going to avoid building 4-way interchanges, which are major traffic points. Maybe I'll have to adjust in some particular scenario on 1 or 2 intersections, but this is a plan for now. Of course, we can always change. That aside, I have to say I really like how these intersections turned out. I wasn't sure how I was going to build them using curved roads, but I gotta admit, I like the final result on all of them. I think the ones being built right now is my favorite. I like how the arterial bends over the highway, following the elevation of the terrain and connects naturally to the road below. Very unique shape and very organic looking. Finally, we built the 4th interchange. The only one which is not quite a 3-way intersection. The avenue to the south is the arterial that connects to both the residential and industrial districts we built earlier in the video. The dirt road to the north is a road that loops around the hill where we've placed our wind turbines and doesn't have a lot of traffic for now, until we move forward with the plan I told you about some videos ago of connecting our trash management facilities to it on the north part of the map. Here I decided to sync the highway in a way that looked natural, and having both connecting roads keep their original height levels, and connect to it with simple segments, just like we've done with the other interchanges. While I take my time building this intersection, it's time for a moment of appreciation for the channel supporters. Thank you guys for taking a step further into helping the channel grow and contributing for the continuation of the series and for the upload of more videos like this. Let's address some points that emerged from the last video. First, a lot of people have suggested splitting the residential bus lines in half, and instead of having a long bus route circling the district, we could have 2 different routes, with half the length meeting at the bridge. Functionally, this has no impact on the line's effectiveness, but I do like the fact that this way we can prevent the buses from using the avenue bridge to cross from one side to the other. You guys also pointed out that we could use the wall-to-wall residential specialization on Core Emerald. as I pointed out that I wasn't so sure about how the high density apartments looked there. So I tested this out and I actually think this new option looks better. For the record, I also tested doing the same with commercial and office, but I didn't like how everything blended. So we're keeping the high density commercial and offices in the middle for some solid visual contrast. Finally, someone suggested that we could slightly elevate the cycling road to force the creation of fences, since I've had some trouble building those during the last video. I'm still not sure if I prefer it this way, but we'll keep it for the time being. Hope you enjoyed the time-lapse. Let's check out what we've done today. Alright guys, here is an overview of what we've accomplished today with a before and after comparison. I'm happy with the overall shape of the new layouts. I think they fit what we already have so far. Of course, as I mentioned, I've only focused on the most important roads, the ones that are on top of the hierarchy and the ones that will eventually have the highest amount of traffic flowing through them. The local roads that make up the neighborhoods and the generic industrial blocks, where the actual zoning takes place, will be built as we develop these areas gradually. As you can see, we still have a lot of straight roads that we used as guidelines that need to be deleted eventually. So, how was the road hierarchy theory we've seen at the beginning of the video apply to this city, which follows a layout of only curved roads? Well, first we have the highway. This is the only highway connecting the city to the outside world, so it will have to be able to handle an enormous amount of traffic. I will avoid building four-way interchanges to arterials to control traffic, and I will try to build multiple access points along its length so that anywhere in the city there's good highway access. It will be extended, and at the very end we will have a downtown with skyscrapers, tall office buildings, and maybe even a harbor or an airport. Then we have the arterials. I prefer not to have a lot of buildings zoned directly on these roads unless I don't plan on extending the roads further, which is the case of the Emerald District, where I have zoned houses directly here. As I mentioned, in the new district, I can extend the arterial past the river and connect it back to the highway somewhere. And I can also continue it past the new industrial district to access the adjacent islands. Collectors here are pretty standard. In the new area, I have the circular collector that handles all local traffic. In already developed areas, such as the Emerald District, collectors are the roads that lead to Core Emerald, at the center. If you remember, all schools, medical clinics and fire and police stations are built here. I also tried not having a lot of intersections in these roads. In fact, I think we have too many already in the Industrial District, and we can probably delete some of them and spread them apart a bit more later if traffic becomes an issue. Then, of course, there's the local roads, which are clearly visible on the Emerald and Industrial Districts, but are yet to be developed on the newer areas. Finally, we plan the rail system. There will be train stations in both the new industrial and residential districts, and this system will be extended to the downtown area, and can even be split to access a nearby island. So that will be it for today. I hope this video has been helpful in some way, and I hope you have enjoyed it. If so, subscribe for more content like this, and of course, to follow the development of the city. Take care, and as always, have fun!